Brad Stevens, you've done it again. What's going on, Celtics fans? You're watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Tyler Smith, and your Boston Celtics made a couple of moves, even some that came after the buzzer of the NBA trade deadline that look minor in the naked eye, but they can have a real major impact for your Boston Celtics. So let's recap what they did, as this is the first time we're talking about this in a video. The Celtics and the Hornets made a trade. Xavier Tillman and cash considerations of $3.5 million going to the Charlotte Hornets for nothing. The Celtics with a salary dump here once again, like we saw with Chris Boucher earlier in the day, we'll go over in a moment. But this trade specifically got the Celtics under the luxury tax. The goal that we have been hearing about since they offloaded Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, didn't re-sign Al Horford and Luke Cornett, and now they have finally done it. The Boston Celtics are under the luxury tax, and they have a ton more roster flexibility here for the forthcoming years of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown leading this Boston Celtics team. So Xavier Tillman and cash going to the Hornets for a whole bunch of nothing. And then we also had right before this, well, I guess maybe like an hour and a half before this, Josh Minott heading to the Brooklyn Nets, again, for nothing. The Nets just took him on, and the Celtics get off the Josh Minott deal, vet minimum deal that he signed in the offseason. We'll talk more about these guys and their impacts for the Boston Celtics in just a moment, but I'm just telling you guys, these are all the deals that were made. Josh Minott now ends up in Brooklyn. And we also saw early this morning, we already put a video out about it, Chris Boucher going to the Utah Jazz. Now, Boucher will be waived from the Utah Jazz here, so he'll have the opportunity to go out there and play for a contender. But we didn't know what the Celtics got back in that deal at the time, and it actually was a player. They got back a two-way player, John Tonje, formerly of the Wisconsin Badgers. He was a big-time scorer for them in the backcourt last year, and now he ends up in the NBA. And who knows, he fills up one of those two-way spots that the Celtics now have opened up after another move that they made we'll talk about in just a moment. But make sure you subscribe to the channel. Stay locked in to your Boston Celtics and Celtics Today, because we have Celtics news and rumors all season long. It's not just trade stuff. We're going to continue to cover your C's the rest of the season, into the offseason, 365 days a year. Hit that sub button and turn your notifications on so you never miss a moment surrounding your Celtics. Okay, so let's just continue recapping. The Celtics made a bunch of deals, and this was the biggest one of them all, of course. As a matter of fact, these were the two biggest ones of them all, because this is actually a separate deal for these two things going on. Nikola Vucevic is the Celtics' upgrade in the front court here at that center position. Traded technically for Anthony Simons. This deal is also completely finalized at this point, and Vucevic will make his debut on Friday against the Miami Heat. But Simons goes over for this Denver second-round pick, and the Celtics also gave up that second-round pick to go and make sure that Danny Ainge accepted Chris Boucher, because, of course, Danny Ainge is going to squeeze out a pick from us. But that was a separate deal, and that actually generated a $27.1 million trade exception with that one-for-one Anthony Simons and second-round pick deal. And then the Celtics get Nikola Vucevic, and they give away that second-round pick that is pretty valuable. It'll actually be the Pelicans' second-round pick, which is going to be in like the first 5 picks of the second round. But they use the reason they did this is because they absorb Nikola Vucevic into the Kristaps Porzingis trade exception. So it actually ended up getting used, and now they have an even bigger one for a full calendar year that expires at next year's trade deadline. Also, big-time news, considering the Celtics had a bunch of roster spots open, and they still do. They filled one with Amile Williams, a guy who we've seen as a two-way get a little bit of run over the last few weeks, a couple of nice performances, and now he earns a 2-year contract worth $2.7 million. Not going to sit here and act like he's going to play a ton for this team, but I will say it's an intriguing developmental project here. He can rebound. He can block shots. A very, very gifted passer of the basketball, too. So I'm excited to see what opportunities he gets the rest of the season. That last week of the year when guys are sitting out and maybe the Celtics have their seed locked up, we'll potentially see the full potential of Amile Williams here. But that brings us to this. Bobby Marks put this picture out. On June 15th, you were all watching. We were all here together. And the Celtics had issues in terms of their tax for next season. They were paying more in luxury tax penalties than they would for the actual roster that they employed. And look where we are now. On February 5th, 2026, what is that? 8 months later, you shaved off $360 million worth of spending. And I get it. I'm not trying to sit here and chill out for a billionaire and be happy because Bill Chisholm saves a couple of dollars. That's not the reason that this is super significant. It is because of the ability and the flexibility and the options that Boston has to build out the rest of this team and improve this team while the championship core is still intact. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser. Now you got Vucevic, Kata. Like, all these guys are still here. And you can go make more upgrades now this summer, unlike a lot of contenders around the league. Now, the Celtics have 2 roster spots open here, so they are going to have to be filled. Remember, like I said at the top of the show, they're under the luxury tax now, so they have to be a little bit careful in terms of how they maneuver the rest of their roster moves the rest of the season, considering they're not too far below the luxury tax. Brian Robb of Mass Live making a key point here, saying the Celtics are under the tax line by about $840,000. So they are going to have to wait some time to fill an open roster spot in order to stay under. And I thought I saw when I first saw this tweet, it's $480. No, it's $840,000. Okay, not bad. Like, that's enough to wait, 10 days or so and sign one of the buyout guys out there. So they're going to fill these spots. They have 14 days to do so to be in compliance with the NBA's roster regulations. They have to have 14 guys on the team. They only have 12 at this point, considering they've dumped Boucher, Minott, and Xavier Tillman, who all were out of the rotation at this point. So it doesn't really matter in terms of on-court production for Boston that those 3 guys are gone. Now they got to fill those spots with somebody else. They got to get a little bit creative with it. I'm not going to lie. It's going to probably involve another 2-way elevation or conversion. It will probably involve somebody in the buyout market. We'll go through a couple of names in a moment. But they're going to have to get a little bit creative. And one name who I think has a pretty decent shot at getting one of those roster spots is a guy who I saw outplay Kevin Durant on the basketball court on Wednesday night. And that's Ron Harper Jr. Got his first NBA start against Houston. Boston won that game. Ron Harper Jr. was awesome in it. And look, for a team that still needs to save a little bit of money here and make sure that they don't go over the tax line, converting Ron Harper Jr. when that really doesn't affect your cap all that much is probably at least the first course of action to take here. Secondly, you probably go after the buyout market. So who are a couple of names that Boston could target here? I will say, with them having to wait 10 to 13 days or so to make that prorated contract end up a little bit less impactful on your cap here, there's a good chance that a good portion of these guys are off of the market at that point, unless somebody wants to play for the Boston Celtics. Somebody's dying to play for the Boston Celtics here. Lonzo Ball, Chris Paul, they are guaranteed. They've already been told that they're going to be released. Chris Middleton, there's a chance there as well. He got traded he did get traded to the Mavericks in the AD deal. We'll talk about all the deals that went down later on. Andre Drummond is a guy who the Sixers were trying to move. They didn't, so they could see a buyout there. Mike Conley is in the Hornets, but there's been talks about him going back to the Minnesota Timberwolves. We'll see what happens there. And then some more buyout candidates. George Niang for the Memphis Grizzlies. Matisse Thybulle. DeMar DeRozan. I swear I saw a report that said DeMar DeRozan's guaranteed to not be bought out by the Sacramento Kings, who made no moves, by the way, at the deadline. It was wild. Brooke Lopez is a name out there. Marvin Bagley, who just got traded in the AD trade. And then Haywood Highsmith is a name that I'm certainly intrigued by in terms of players that could be here waiting in the wings. Highsmith is a guy who's injured at this point, too. So it's not like he's itching to get back out there on the basketball court. It's still really no timetable on his return. So I'd be in on bringing a guy like Highsmith to Boston, or potentially a name like Cam Thomas if he decides he wants to wait the 10 days and play with Boston. But I don't know. That doesn't seem too likely from my point of view. You tell me, though. Name a player the Celtics should sign for the rest of the season. Comment down below. It could be one of those guys we just mentioned, the buyout targets. It could be Cam Thomas. It could be somebody in the two-way sphere or on the main Celtics. Let me know who you think the Celtics should sign for the rest of the season is down below. Coming up next, we're going to get some major NBA news that after the NBA trade deadline that affects your Boston Celtics. We're not going to go through every trade, but seriously, the ones that affect this team and what their pursuits are the rest of the season, we're going to have to talk about them. First, though, I got to tell you guys about our sponsor, and that is Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, folks, and it's the last chance to get in on the football action this season. So take advantage and use Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. It's the best daily fantasy sports app in the game because they offer the best features and the best deals. They actually are giving new users $50 in lineups after they play their first $5 lineup. Use our code CLNS, though, to get it. All you guys got to do is pick 2 to 6 players and just pick more or less on their projected stats. Whether it's basketball, football one more time this year, hockey, college sports, you can mix and match them all in the same lineup and win up to 2,000 times your money. Like I said with the features, they're the best in the game. Prize Picks to make it easier for you guys to win real money in real time. So they'll slash projections by 99%. And and they're doing it for the big game. A max discount for Drake May. All he's got to do is throw one passing yard. More than half a passing yard, and the square is green in your prize picks lineup. So, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And take advantage of their other deals as well, like early payouts and the community tab where you can copy other lineups and stuff too. Download the app today. Use that code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. That link is in the comment section and description of today's video. Okay, so let's talk about some of the moves that have gone on around the league here. Speaking of the Clippers, they blew it up. We'll get to the next Clipper deal that they made in just a moment, but James Harden going to the Cleveland Cavaliers here, it makes the Cavs better, in my opinion. It does. I don't know who's defending in that backcourt between Donovan Mitchell and James Harden, but it just clearly seemed like it wasn't working out with Darius Garland. They didn't really like playing together. I heard a couple of reports with Donovan Mitchell. They didn't really enjoy sharing the backcourt together. Now comes James Harden, and apparently they're going to make a run at LeBron James this summer too. The two-man recruiting trail of James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. I thought it was very interesting that some of the people out west had the Cleveland Cavaliers shoot up to the favorites to win the Eastern Conference. I feel like that was a little overreactionary, and to be honest with you, if you try to win money on that, you're silly because the Cavs aren't winning no NBA. They're not winning the East. They're just not. I get that they're a little bit closer by adding James Harden, and he doesn't have to do as much as he did in LA because he was really inefficient there, even though he was helping them a good bit. I don't see the Cavs as big of a threat as some others are seeing, but it's certainly an impactful trade, and they're going to be at the top of the Eastern Conference, no doubt about it. Speaking of the top of the Eastern Conference, Knicks got better today. The Knicks got better today. They flipped Gershon Yabusele last night for Dalen Terry, and then they flipped Dalen Terry for Jose Alvarado, who's a good ball player. He's from New York. He's going to feed off that Madison Square Garden crowd. And he's a pesky point of attack defender. Another thing to note for the Knicks, they have Deuce McBride on the shelf right now. He might not play until the playoffs, so we'll see how that impacts them here moving forward. Celtics and Knicks have the same record, but they certainly got better by adding Jose Alvarado. Excuse me. We got the Indiana Pacers with their current situation. Tyrese Haliburton torn Achilles, basically tanking, and they go out there and add Zubats. Okay. I see you, Pacers. I see you. They get rid of Benedict Mathurin, Isaiah Jackson, 2 first-round picks, and look, those are going to be potentially very, very valuable. But for next season, the Pacers are going to be contenders once again. They're going to be right in the mix once again. They basically take their entire team from the finals run in 2025, and they're going to bring it all back and add Zubats to it instead of Miles Turner, who's just like you want to talk about an upgrade? Oh my goodness. Zubats is miles, no pun intended, the player that Miles Turner is. So that's a big-time deal from the Indiana Pacers there. Also around the Eastern Conference, nothing that's too impactful for this season unless you're talking about the Atlanta Hawks adding Corey Kispert. CJ McCollum could be a buyout target as well. I'd be all over that if I was the Boston Celtics. Trae Young, though, going to the Washington Wizards, and they expect to sign him to a long-term deal. It's interesting. I think it's fun. They also added Anthony Davis, which we'll talk about in a moment. They're also trying to add him to a long-term deal to stay in Washington. Wizards are definitely taking a swing, and I can respect that, unlike some other franchises around the league. Chris Middleton and a bunch of filler going to the Dallas Mavericks here, along with 2 first-round picks. So Anthony Davis went for more first-round picks than Luka Doncic did. Let that sink in. But Anthony Davis, Trae Young, they're both probably not going to play the rest of the season for Washington, so don't anticipate that being too big of an impact play here. Also, going around the Eastern Conference, we had a 3-team deal go down between the Bulls, the Hornets, and the Thunder. Thunder is participating in taking on Mason Plumlee's contract, but the Hornets, who are slowly creeping up the standings and slowly getting closer and closer to the play-in. Kobe White. Considering they gave up like Colin Sexton, who is probably just a worse Kobe White, I don't think it's too bad of a deal. They have Mike Conley. They're going to buy him out and all that good stuff, but definitely got an upgrade there in Charlotte. I like what they're building down there. Concaneppel, dog. That's all I'll say. They're not really a threat to the Celtics, though, who traded for Nikola Vucevic to make their big move at the deadline. And look, I get it, guys. I would have liked Zubats, too. But at the same time, Zubats went for $2 pretty valuable first-round picks. So the Celtics trade for Nikola Vucevic, send away Anthony Simons here, and it's going to improve the Celtics front court, no doubt about it. The Anthony Simons aspect of it all, with him leaving the team and not being a part of this squad anymore after he was playing really, really well over the last month, it does hurt. Like, Celtics teammates are hurt, and I'll say that same thing about Xavier Tillman, who's a big-time locker room guy here. Is Chris Boucher and Josh Minott, like guys who had good relationships with the guys on this team. It sucks because there's certainly a human element to all of this. So with Vucevic coming to this team, you see the depth chart kind of get shaken out now of Vooch, Queta, Garza, and Amari Williams. So honestly, a solid front court. I know you have to go against some pretty tough centers here in the postseason and whatnot, but they absolutely upgraded with Nikola Vucevic. As far as the Xavier Tillman stuff goes, we're always going to have that three in the corner in the NBA Finals. We're always going to have him locking up Luka Doncic in one-on-one defense. And we're always going to have that relationship that he had with this team. And he was a culture setter. Wasn't necessarily the most impactful guy on the floor, but the Celtics have gotten under the luxury tax. They have a ton more flexibility now. And we're going to talk about that more in coming videos. That's why you follow me on Twitter, as that will do it for today's show, at Tyler J. Smith, 2 H's, because the name's common, but I am not. And make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. YouTube.com/CelticsTV for the latest and greatest on your C's the rest of the season and into the offseason too. We'll see you guys next time. And as always, let's go C's.